Hi everyone, my name is Question, and welcome back to another Pirate101 video. Today I want to give a few tips and pointers to those who may want to return or start playing the game for the first time. In my opinion, Pirate101 is pretty fun. It's a pretty good game. So I wanted to make this video for those who may not know what to do in the game first or may not know how to start. I want to help out with that. This won't go too much to depth, but this will just go on the surface type thing. Like just a few things that the game may not explain clearly to the player, or how important some decisions may or may not be when it comes to creating your character or whatnot. Or maybe you just want to know, what school should I play first? What class should I play first? What class might I have to use this time on? Stuff like that. So I wanted to go ahead and make this type of guide. If you want to see more guides like this, I'd be more than happy to make them. Just comment down below, subscribe if you want, turn on the notification bell, and with all that out of the way, let's just get started. So let's just go ahead and start with the class. What class should you play first? You can go with whatever you want, but personally, I recommend Musketeer. It's a broken class, and Musketeers have plenty of chains and damage they can do from afar. They also get pretty good traps, such as torpedoes, later on. Their bomb trust is amazing overall, and Musketeers tend to sweep throughout nearly the entire game with little to no trouble. It may be a bit rough as a newer player, but Musketeer is the easiest to learn in my opinion. Their strengths are solid damage output, having the ability to chain and spread enemies before they even touch you, and they can run quite a few shooting setups. However, the weaknesses can be low take ability, low dodge, and depending on the enemy, they may get shredded if one gets too close. It's an amazing class for farming late game, however, even if you're solo. Buccaneer is somewhat of a musketeer, but melee. However, they have amazing damage output, as well as take ability. With the right setup and epics, they can be tanky killing machines. It's not a bad class to start off with. It's kind of straightforward. You just go in and kill it after buffing yourself with the spells and abilities you have. Their strengths are high tick ability, great damage, they can shred enemies in one go if they play it smartly, and the animations can be pretty cool, especially if you use a sword or any other weapon you carry with two hands. For cons, however, will it be low dodge, alright but not the best accuracy, and some in-game range mobs or bosses can hold them if they don't buff themselves accordingly. However, it's a pretty solid starting class. However, the dodge doesn't actually matter that much because Buccaneers, they kind of want to get hit. You'll see what I mean if you play Buccaneer, but yeah, they kind of want to get hit. So don't worry about the low dodge too much. You'll see why if you play Buccaneer. Swashbuckler is a pretty fun class in my opinion. It was actually my first ever class. I somewhat recommend this class, as with highs such as Walk in Darkness or Walk in Shadows, they can deal great damage. However, it's not that simple. Later on, you'll have to pick a plan more Swashbuckler. They deal the most burst damage, have the highest dodge rating, but are very squishy. Swashbuckler's strengths are high dodge, high damage, the ability to hide and deal damage in the dark, and can take less damage from traps as time goes on, and they get high movement range later on. They also get the ability to jump over obstacles and spaces later on, and they can damage their enemies each round with bleeding or poison attacks. However, the cons of being a Swashbuckler would be the fact that enemies later on can have inflated stats, which may make it harder for Swashbuckler to dodge, squishiness, enemies carrying highs later on with abilities such as First Strike 3 and above, or Scent, low health, and a right accuracy but not the best. They also don't have lots of defense, so you'll have to rely more on accuracy debuffs if you wish to dodge as a Swashbuckler, as well as applying loads of dodge buffs. But other than that, Swashbuckler is pretty cool. You just have to find a way to get around the Scent free and First Strike free enemies, because those guys can suck at times. Witch Doctors are in a somewhat rough spot to say the least. The class isn't unplayable, but it's not that great without you always relying on a specific companion to constantly buff their spells. Witch Doctors can thrive without him, but it takes practice in playing the game without using him. Witch Doctors have loads of spells. They're a power heavy class who can do loads of damage with a few spells, but they're pretty fragile. Some pros are they can run many companions and buff their attributes and juju spells. They can have high range depending on the one they use. Some of their spells have great damage output, and some of their spells can debuff enemies. However, they don't have many debuffing spells. They need a lot more in my opinion. Their minions, however, or their summons, also aren't all that great. So I hope they get changed at some point too, because I feel like the minion should be really helpful rather than just meat shields, in my opinion. Witch Doctors, however, also give the most spell power out of all the classes. They unfortunately have quite a few cons, more than any of the other classes. Those being they have low dodge, accuracy, and health. So if a melee enemy gets close to Witch Doctor, we're more likely cooked. They're typically glued to Old Scratch because that's kind of the only way the average new Witch Doctor can play without their hair. They don't have many debuffing spells, they're extremely squishy, and they kind of have a hard time overall. I wouldn't recommend this class to new or returning players unless you're with a team, want a challenge, or just want to go for it overall. It's up to you. They did get better with some gear from recent updates, but it can still be a little tricky. At least, however, with the current in-game enemies we have, if you play well enough, you could have an easier time than as a swashbuckler. The class is also pretty fun overall too, so I would check that out. Just be aware of the pros and cons I mentioned. Now, my personal favorite, Privateer. Privateer is a healing, buffing, and support class. They have the most health, most attack ability, buffs, are extremely versatile when it comes to subs and companions. They don't have great damage output, as expected from support class, but with the right setup, if you want it, you could be a great offensive Privateer. It's not necessary, it's just what I personally do. However, this class is said to be the hardest one to play because you have loads of buffs to choose from. You have to protect and heal your defense and yourself accordingly, and it isn't exactly a walk in the park for newer players. You'll have to think quite a bit when playing this class, especially when you're solo. The pros of Privateer are high tech ability, loads of heals, buffs, and shields. They can run any command they please, they can run about any step they want, and as time goes on, the buffs get really strong. Privateers also have infinite range bounce to use on more than one enemy at a time. It's a really good class, it's just overworked because it's a support class. I will recommend playing this class first because I feel like it would take some time to grasp the concept of Privateer and buffing in general. You know what to expect, know your companion spring, and know what buffs to use if you're to play Privateer on perhaps a second or third playthrough. It can also be kind of slow early game, so if that's not your cup of tea as a new or returning player, I pick another class for now. The cons of Privateer would be low damage output, and they have low agility, so if they're against a musketeer enemy or perhaps a swashbuckler enemy, they could get easily shredded if not careful. It can also be a little boring and slow early game. However, as you progress more into the game, many more sets become available, the most popular being 3D Staffy. Now for the origin. Typically, origins don't matter that much. People would make a huge deal over what precision command you have and what stat boost you have, but honestly, I wouldn't pay that much mind. At the end of the day, it barely matters. But if you do want better stats for the class in choosing, then the optimal route would be going naturally spooky for every class except Buccaneer, as the only spells they really use are shields or charges. I'd go naturally tough for Buccaneer personally. Naturally spooky gives you 5% spell power according to your base spell power. Naturally tough is the same thing except for your base health. You can go naturally tough on a Privateer too, but I mainly recommend spooky because they use a bunch of spells and heals. The 5% doesn't matter that much, so don't freak out if you have Born Warrior or something like that. Born Warrior, Sneak, and Keen Eyes aren't too good because they give a flat amount of accuracy, dodge, or weapon power. It scales with your level, but in the end, you'd only be gaining plus 5 of any of those, which isn't too great. The precision command you get depends on how your parents died. If you select Wasp, you go like a Jack Russell. If you choose Mutiny, you get Dead Mike. If you choose Armada, you get Gaspar the Bow. If you choose Thunderstorm, you get Milo Greytail. And if you choose Sky Squid, you get Burgess Retro. It doesn't really matter which precision command you can get whoever you want. But if you want an optimal or recommended companion for your starting playthrough, I chose Jack for my Privateer. Not only because he's also one, but because he's versatile and can succeed really well with buffs. You can also select if you're a Buccaneer. He may be a Privateer, but with enough strength buffs, he can become strength-based and do loads of damage that way. He's also not a bad choice if you're a Witch Doctor. You can also choose Burgess if you're a Buccaneer. He's a great anti-melee unit, with him later on gaining the ability to trade First Strike free and Vengeance Strike free. He's also already strength-based, so helps Buccaneers already. Dead Mike is a pretty cool choice for Witch Doctors, but I mainly got him on mine because of the aesthetic. He isn't all that great, but he is getting a buff soon, so I can't wait for that. Musketeer, it especially doesn't matter because that class is broken, but I chose Milo because Musketeers weren't agility buffs, which Swashbucklers and Milo can receive and use. Gaspar is already disliked by some of the community, but he isn't all that much of a bad choice if you wish you had someone who could debuff enemies' accuracy and have the potential to utilize ripples that way. Swashbuckler, I Gaspar'd on, but I'd probably recommend Milo more, just because he's also a Swashbuckler, so your synergy with him may be better. Now, for the general tips and pointers. This will be the last part of the video. This won't go too much into depth, but this is just general stuff I want to tell newer or returning players. First of all, As a general, typically a spoken rule, always have fast combat on. Fast combat just speeds up combat animations, making battles go faster. As combat currency, please have fast combat on with other players. It'll make everything easier. You can turn on fast combat by going to settings, advanced gameplay options, and toggle fast combat. If your game has a fast combat on, simply try for game audio. This is typically a given, so I just want to get this out of the way. This is also not mentioned by the game, so if you do feel like the game is going a little too slow, you can always toggle fast combat, and hopefully it'll make things a bit faster. Next, I advise doing side quests and press the Z quest as you go on from world to world. Practice points help a ton. It'll save loads of time. There are a few websites you can go to for the locations of the things you want you to find. As for side quests, the XP can help a lot, especially because difficulty spikes hit hard in this game. Pick up your class player companions. They'll help out quite a bit. Depending on who they are, they may get outclassed by other companions later on, but they'll serve well early game. Always have your main companions about 2 to 3 levels behind you. You don't have to level them up every single time you level up, but make sure they're up to par. Always do your companion promotion quests, no matter who it is, and no matter what class you are. Even if you don't use or plan on using the companion yourself, that companion can potentially serve well in team play. When your companions are level 8, I start putting them on sailing, a task that they can do that gets part nautical XP. Nautical XP is really important. There's many ship fights in this game, and to be able to use equipment to make your life easier, always have your nautical XP up to par. The only companions that wouldn't put on nautical orders will remain free. You don't want to be stuck farming nautical XP later on, it gets boring and tedious. Be consistent about having companions getting nautical XP. The higher the level they are, the more XP they'll gather for you. For our next pointer, consider visiting clandestine trainers in Devilfish Hall starting level 20. I will research a bit about this first, but depending on the class and or sub you want to have, typically privateers, swashbucklers, and buccaneers go for the melee trainer, while top fleet, musketeers typically go for Firezen, the shooting trainer, and witch hunters go for Kuatori, the staffing trainer. The free, however, have a schedule. I look them up and go to them accordingly. Make sure you have the prerequisite talents required before you train the epics. They can go a long way. You can revisit them at level 40 for additional epics. And for my last pointer, do not worry about pets and gear until your max level, or at least level 60. Starting level 60, you can do a certain quest line that allows you to unlock a tower you can farm that will help you with in-game immensely. I'll have that in the description of this video. The game is easy enough to the point you can cruise with bizarre gear and no pet just fine. Yes, there'll be difficulty spikes here and there, but it's with loads of games. Do not invest in pets and gear or without even knowing if you'll enjoy the game. I've seen many people, especially people who come from Pirate101, always investing a lot in pets and gear, then they end up quitting or barely playing. And usually, the storyline isn't finished. Pet making is tedious, yes. Even worse than Pirate101's pet making system. And getting gear at a low level is pointless because it's much better gear at high levels waiting for you. I actually cannot stress this enough. Do not invest into gear and pets in this game until you get far in the story. If you invest in the game and not enjoy it in the end, you just waste your own time. Have fun with the game, have fun questing. You can always get good gear and pets later on. There are many community members in Discord who are more than willing to help with pets and gear, but worry about that later on. Just quest and enjoy the game. Take your time, don't rush it, read the story, have fun. With all that out of the way, I believe that's all the pointers I wanted to give. So I think that'll end the video right here. If you guys want to see more videos like this, I will be more than happy to do one. It was pretty fun to think of this video, a little fun of some tips and pointers I wish I knew before I started playing this game, and tips I wish I knew before I even joined the Discord, because some of these tips I still didn't even know before I joined the Discord. So I just wanted to go ahead and share some of these with people who may want to play the game for the first time, people who may want to return to the game, or people who may just genuinely not know about the game still, because it doesn't really explain a lot, so I don't really blame players. With all that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and see you guys next time. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I'm going to go ahead and see you guys later. Bye!